In this video, I'm going to briefly talk about how to use exponents and how we evaluate exponents when it comes to negative numbers or negative integers. So I'm going to show an example of each type of expression that you might see that would include a negative integer, and then how that negative affects the answer. So the first thing we need to understand is with negatives and multiplication, a negative times a negative is equal to a positive, and a negative times a positive is equal to a negative. When you multiply positive numbers, we've always done that. Positive times positive is positive. The only things that are going to be added are these two pieces right here. That when I have two negatives, they multiply to make a positive, and that when I have a negative times a positive, they equal a negative. We need that information first because when we get to these negative exponents, I want you to understand why an answer comes out positive or why an answer comes out negative. So in these first two, you can see I have very similar expressions, but one has parentheses and one does not. The expression that includes parentheses, so this one right here, means that the negative is included in those parentheses. So when I write out my expanded form, which is what I'm going to do first, when I write out my expanded form, that negative is going to be present on each of the factors that I write. So negative 4 to the fourth power is going to be negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. Now, knowing that a negative times a negative is a positive, right here, this right here, knowing that, I can see that I have a negative times a negative, and then I have another negative times a negative. So this entire answer is going to come out positive. And when you type this in the calculator, that's what should happen if you're typing it in as you wrote it. So negative 4 in parentheses to the fourth power is positive 64. Nope, it's 256. Now this second one, this negative 4 to the fourth power, is negative 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. That negative on the outside is not included. It just means the opposite of 4 squared. So that negative is not included as part of the exponent, and I would just multiply 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and then take the opposite of that. And that's going to be this bottom one here. This negative times a positive is a negative. If I have one negative times a bunch of positives, I'm going to get a negative answer. So this one's going to be negative 256. So now we're just going to practice. We're going to show a few more examples of this. So this negative 2 to the sixth power, I'm going to write it out 6 times. And then I'm going to look at, okay, is my answer going to come out positive or negative? And I can use the calculator for this, so the calculator could also tell me that. But I have a negative times a negative times a negative, and another negative times a negative. So I know my answer is going to come out positive. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. So there is my 64, and this answer is going to be positive. Number 2 is going to be negative 3 times 3 times 3. Again, this is read as the opposite of 3 to the third power. 3 to the third power is 27, so my answer is going to be negative 27. This one, same thing. It's going to be the opposite of 8 to the 0 power. 8 to the 0 power is 1, but I want the opposite of that, so negative 1. Here I'm going to have negative 5 to the third power. So this is going to be a negative times a negative is a positive, times one more negative is going to be negative 125. This one, the 4 is inside the parentheses, so that negative being inside the parentheses makes a huge difference. Now this is included in what's being taken to the 0 power. This is going to be a positive 1. And then for number 7, it's negative 1, and then we're going to write it out 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I put this one on here because this one always trips us up a little bit. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, etc. is 1, not 8. So this is going to be -1, because again, this negative is read as the opposite. And then I just ask that you write down any patterns that you may have noticed. How do you know something's going to come out positive? How do you know something's going to come out negative? I've already told you the parentheses versus not parentheses, but what else do you notice? Do you notice anything else? And then if you have watched this video, I do have some more for you to practice with these integers and exponents.